What is going on, everybody? It's Hunter with LS Lures back with another awesome video. Today we're going to be going over a really cool swim jig modification. We're going to talk about why you would do it, where it's super effective, and most importantly, how to do it. As always, make sure you like and subscribe, share this with a buddy, show it to somebody who could use a little bit of help with swim jigs, catching more fish, especially up shallow. So we're going to go ahead and jump right into it, guys. Thanks for watching. Alrighty, guys, jumping in before we talk about the whys and the wheres and the stuff like that. We're going to show you what this is, and basically it's just a really cool modification to trim your skirt. It adds a lot more flair, so that way when you're fishing shallow and you're really shaking that jig, you know, giving it the old Alabama twitch around shallow grass or cover like that, and you want that jig to really float and pop, this helps it do that a ton, right? A lot of guys, I know a ton of guys just leave their skirts as is. Some guys really chop on them. This way is a little bit unique, and it really does help that skirt have that quick twitch that everyone wants. And so that way, if you do pass it by that one branch that one's sitting under and he's only got a half a second to look at it, when you twitch it, that skirt is doing everything in its power to throw flash and flare and look really good so that he comes and eats it. But the biggest thing with this is, starting off, this is our Gaff swim jig. It's a really, really awesome hand-tied swim jig. We hand pour them, hand tie them all. It's got a freaking beefcake of a hook on it. So that way, like, if you guys can see there, any fish that eats this dang thing is not coming off. And the really nice part about it too is every hook that gets, or every fish that gets it down really deep, you know, you have those frogfish and those jigfish sometimes that they get it down really deep and you hook them and it just barely skin hooks. So when you go to boat flip them or they come up and jump, it comes off the second they open their mouth, you know. That doesn't happen with this hook. This hook is it's really tall off the bait there, so that way anytime that this bait enters their mouth, when you come to rip it out, there's no possible way to get this thing to come out, whether it's hooking on the outside or driving way in deep in the back without sticking them. The first step of this, though, you're going to want to divvy that skirt up and take all the strands from the top and split them so that all we have is that tie in the middle. We've got our skirt on the bottom, we've got our skirt on the top. And then what you're going to want to do here is you're just going to want to turn this upside down, or you can pull it out and cut it, whatever, for the sake of hands and what I've got on me right now. You're going to want to go up like a ½ inch, sometimes more, sometimes less, it depends on the person, but you're just going to want to take that skirt material like that and chop a ton of it off. So that way, what that does is now you've got kind of an uneven jig skirt to where you've got this cool little feathery effect on the back, but everything on top there, how it's offset, instead of folding all the way down and being really slow, the longer your skirt strands are, the longer it takes for them to do what they need to do, right? So it kind of hinders action. The shorter they are, the quicker they can twitch and flail. So that's why you see a lot of finesse jigs and stuff being really good when they bite stuff, is because they can just sit there and do this, right? A big skirt, a big bulky skirt, takes a lot of time for it to expand out, and then you move it and it comes back down and it kind of does its thing. Those little tiny strands there, if you just sit there and shake it, kind of like what you're doing with the jig, they have a lot of really quick action, right? So you can impart a lot by doing very little. And the best part about this is when you cut it like that and you're quick twitching it, every time you shake that rod, these are just going crazy. So it's a really, really awesome way to give that jig a different action. It makes it a lot finessier too if you're in a little bit cleaner water, and it just shows them something that they kind of don't see a whole lot, right? So you can leave it like this as is. You can put your trailer down there. Another thing I like to do is I like to just come through and make it super compact too, because, you know, if they're feeding on smaller shad, if they're short striking it, like I went out yesterday in the rain, it's pouring, and it seemed like every single fish that came up was just throttling it. They just weren't getting it very good. I watched a couple of them come up and they go to grab it and they just freaking hit the back end. So I cut the skirt way down, cut the trailer way down so that my kickers are just barely off the back there, and started hooking every single one of them, you know. So sometimes they just want that smaller profile, and for whatever reason that's what they're into. But this is a really good way that when I shake it, it gives this a ton more action. It really doesn't hinder anything on that bait. And so every time you're shaking it in the water, it's just a really quick twitch. It imitates that smaller prey really well, and it gets a ton of bites. So if you want to do a cool little swim jig hack, if you want to catch more fish up shallow, this is a great way to do it. Moving into the wares of this, my favorite place to throw this, obviously there's a ton of ways to fish a swim jig. You can throw it anywhere. It works everywhere across the country. But one of my favorite ways to do this, and especially to utilize this technique, is around shallow cover where there's a lot of hard edges, right? Where that fish is only going to have a really quick moment to look at it. And so that's when I feel like this is the most important. When I'm twitching it, I want that bait to look really messed up and kind of hurt and broken. And if they're sitting, say, in a line of flooded trees or bushes, if they're in submerged grass, if they're by a dock post or something where they're only going to get a really quick look at it and they have to make that decision super quick whether or not they're going to eat it, the more beat up I think I can make that swim jig look, and the more compact that profile. And if the skirt really has that good, that's a horrible way to imitate that. It looks like I'm having a seizure. But either way, the better action you can give that bait as you're sitting there shaking it. Obviously, this is not a great technique if you're sitting there and you just want to cast and wind it, because it's not going to do anything for the jig, right? This is just going to get pinned back. If you're winding it, then you're going to want a more full skirt. But this is specifically good for those guys that are sitting there shaking it the whole time. You're making shorter casts. You're really picking apart cover. So any kind of flooded vegetation, holes in reeds, pencil reeds, any kind of grass that has a ton of water around it where those fish are buried in there, they're going to have a really quick look at it. If you're twitching it by docks really fast, geez, I just threw it. It's another really great way to catch them there, just again, because you're shaking it really quick. It has that great action. You can make it really small if they're feeding on small bait fish, and that's perfect. And then again, any kind of bushes, stuff like that, where you're making short casts, that small profile, if that's what they're after, this is a great way to do that there. So like I said, you can just chop the top, you can chop the bottom too. As far as trailers go on this, any kind of small kicking trailer, I did have one laying around here. Anything like a Z-Craw Jr., a Ray Tremendous Grub, something that's got a really cool little flutter to the back. I don't like throwing any kind of swim bait or something like this on the back, just because if I'm shaking it, it doesn't help that swim bait a ton. You know, that swim bait's got a really long kick. I just cannot find that trailer. I know I had it around here somewhere. Either way, it doesn't matter. Anything with a big kick on the back, right? If you really want to slow it down, the bigger the appendages, the bigger the flap, it's going to slow it more. It's going to make it hover. The smaller the trailer, the smaller kick, it works really well. And then I've also thrown like little white chunks and little white straight tails and stuff like that on the back where you twitch it and they flap really good. It doesn't help it float any, but it has a really good action. It slides through cover really well there. So depending on where you're at, what you're doing, play around, find out what you like. If you just want to chuck and wind, throw a swim jig on, or throw a swim bait on the back, leave that skirt a little bit fuller. I cannot speak today, but like I said, that's that for today's tip, guys. It's not going to be a crazy video. If there's anything you want to see, make sure you comment below. Like and subscribe, share this channel with a friend. We're growing more and more every day. The company's been doing good. And like I said, guys, this is my absolute favorite swim jig of all time. I might be biased because I make them, but I made it because I knew I would like it. And they've worked for me all over the country, catching really big fish, and they stick them good. There's a reason we call it the Gaff. So that'll be linked below, and we'll see you guys in the next video. Thank you so much.